I want to talk about the structure and the different components for people who might be new to the area of product management. No two product managers are alike, and no two companies are alike. Additionally, the role has a pretty wide spread depending on if you're in a startup or at the enterprise growth level. I've never had a role in corporate product management. I like to be really close to users and working on a lot of different problems. Product is for the anomalies. It's for the wild weirdos who don't like routine. They like to talk with customers, then switch gears and work on technical problems, constraints, requirements for engineering, then discussing strategic goals with founders, and then perhaps triaging bugs or determining the methodology for prioritization, for example. These are all part of the role. And you have to get a sense of what capacity your team has. What I like to do is have a Gantt chart for the roadmap, something that's real visual. And I typically do it in Notion. And what that enables is having the appropriate hierarchy. And, product board is a great tool. Asana can do it. There's so many tools that have this capability now. But having a high level roadmap that's live, not something that is a Google Doc at the beginning of the year. Making sure to update those high level timelines at the leadership level. So after conversations with leadership, those adjustments need to be made and then communicated to the team. And that needs to be ahead of the product work, that needs to be ahead of the design work and the engineering work. And when I think about where I am in the product lifecycle as a product manager, you are ahead of everybody else. You are helping to determine what are the priorities for engineering, for design. You have some involvement in customer success and support. And a lot of that is for building intuition on customer needs and problems, pain points, and helping to escalate and triage those to the appropriate stakeholder. Now, with design, it's a bit tricky because you want to create the problem space loosely. It's at a high level. What are the strategic goals for the company? What's an area that they're going to invest in? A feature set. Is it in the category of compliance? Is it in the category of user features? Is it in the category of scale, platform, growth, like sales, integrations with marketing tools? Compliance could be like SOC 2. Refactoring code could be one of those things. You have a problem space, and you as a product manager will define that roughly. And that isn't a finished PRD. That's like enough to send a designer on their path. We're going to tackle this problem area, and leadership and myself have aligned on these 4 main features that are going to be part of that. The designer will start working on concepts. I do like the napkin sketch style. A designer will be more thorough. Every company is different. Some companies only allocate design resources when there's a finished PRD and it's been approved. But it's also important to have designers involved in the concept phase. And if you have a UXR person, they'll be involved in customer interviews and some more thorough research. In parallel, I would be working to formalize the PRD while the designer is producing some low fidelity wireframing, user flows. In startups, it's super flexible. So sometimes you don't have meetings about the user journey for every feature set, and you make decisions very quickly. So I will meet with my designer about the PRD once it's been through a round of review with my other stakeholders, the one signing off. I was directly managed in my last role by my CTO. We'd have multiple cycles, and I'd be going back and forth with the designer and him on narrowing the scope of what that requirement set looks like in terms of a document of instructions of what we are building and a bit on the why. You don't want to get into the how to design, the colors to use, the style of layout. You don't necessarily have to have a hypothesis. If you get buy-in from everybody and your leadership and they say this is what we're doing, you don't need to spend time on a hypothesis. They don't want to see that. You're not exploring questions. You're setting the agenda and defining what people are doing. Once you get that sign off, you have conversations with design and engineering, and you talk about the dependencies, what needs to get done first in order to reach the next steps in completing the PRD. It's a contract, so I am saying this is what the business wants. I've already aligned with leadership on these things. And now I'm working with the direct functional specialists to make sure that gets done. What we're building has a bunch of children, and the children are user stories. And user stories are a way to cover a larger area of definition in a human form, in a way that people can read it, digest it, understand what and why. As a user, I need the ability to do X so that Y can be achieved. The user story will have success criteria. So I typically have a user story, and then I have a set of functional requirements, and then success criteria associated with it. So functional requirements are speaking to engineering, saying what I need in this contract. There's design requirements. Then you have conversations about trade-offs, and you can apply prioritization techniques in that, and you can use feasibility versus value to determine which way you go. You can use vision to guide you. You can use values if it's something that's going to make the team more successful from a operating standpoint. Once the requirements get fulfilled by engineering, what happens is they'll take the PRD, the engineering team will say, okay, we're going to get this done in this sprint. And what that means is they're taking on that contract and they're going to execute on it. And then they're going to send it back to product, which is me. That'll be available for me in the staging environment. There's a few different environments. Each developer will have their own instance. And then when they sort of check out the code, work on a feature, deploy it to development, and that's the day-to-day working environment for engineers. And then once enough changes have been made, either at a sprint cadence, which is typically 2 weeks, or 1 week, or even less for high growth startups, they will deploy to staging. And that'll be everybody's work, and then product updates in staging. And once the product's updated in staging, that's when I go in and make sure that the user stories and the success criteria associated with them has met my quality standard. Where you need to be careful is engineers have a blind spot in design. And it's okay to say that in general terms. We all know our own blind spots. We chose our careers for reasons. They firm with engineers about design criteria that hasn't been met. If a designer has a vision for the holistic usability of the product and it is inconsistent when it's developed or the patterns are off, I will call that out because I also have a product design certificate. So I help to make quick decisions on design sense and validate that engineering work has met the standard. Designers don't have time to be work checking out the product. They're working ahead, and they are sort of this parallel function where this is the ideal world. This is the ideal state for the product. And so they're going to continue to make updates on that. And the production environment will slowly drift away from that. Your job is to pull them together. So we didn't have time to do exactly what the designer wanted, so we did it this way instead. And so I have to go back to the designer and say, you need to update the designs for this. But that is sort of wasted work. Like, we don't get any new value from the designer on that work. What's more important is closely following, making sure the team is aligned with the designer, and anytime it diverges, try to quickly resolve and continuously move towards the designer's vision, because the designer understands the user best, and that's how you have a really competitive product in the market. That's why there's such a high focus on product design in early stage startups. I will link designs to the user story, and that way engineers can check out the PRD. They go through and see the user story and functional requirements, and then they can click right there and open up a Figma. A lot of teams have adopted more of an AI forward development cycle, but those are the underlying principles to how the teams work together. And then the design system side of things, I don't have a ton of experience in that area. I can build design systems myself. I have experience in Figma and Webflow, but when I'm in a product role, my time is much better used in doing product work. So I'm great at defining what a designer needs to do and then championing the designer when they make their case for how that should look and how that experience should be absorbed in the product. What else? Yeah, let's talk about triage. So nowadays, most products will have some sort of bug reporting process, whether you shake your iPhone and report it with logs, or a Zendesk ticket system for customer support, or intercom, or something of that nature. Every support team will have a level system of priority based on who the customer is, if it's an important customer or not, and also the amount of people that it impacts. If it's an issue that impacts all users, that's something that's critical. And I will have meetings with the head of support throughout the week, twice a week. And we can usually only inject one or two things into a sprint, which means of all the things that engineering decided to take on for those 2 weeks, they leave a little bit of extra capacity for customer issues, which are bugs that are identified by users. The support team will escalate those in meetings with me, and then I will meet with engineering, and I will discuss whether or not it can be injected in the sprint, if it can be pushed to the next sprint, or left in the backlog, which means it hasn't been prioritized. It's not something that engineering is going to do necessarily. If it's backlogged, they know about it. And it's something that if they had time and it got prioritized, they would do. But a lot of my job is to prevent them from working on backlog items. A lot of my job is to make sure that they're working on what product wants and the vision that we have for the future state of the product, which takes a lot of design input. There's also customer interviews. User research is really important in product work. Having strong communication skills, being able to jump on a call with a customer. I am great at that. I'm very much a people person. In my first role, I spoke to 5,000 manufacturers at a manufacturing platform. So I am really good at listening to pain points and then documenting them. It helps to have the whole conversation in a transcript because you want to not only validate the pain point, you want to understand the level of pain, I'd say, and how they're feeling. Because what you're really trying to do is you're trying to ask 5 whys of why is this an issue? Is that really the issue or is it this? And can you keep going deeper to identify the root cause of the problem? So that's, root cause analysis. And once you do that, you isolate the pain point from any biases, and you bring that in to the team as a Jira ticket for the backlog of engineering, or to Notion, which is what I use for like product roadmap. So I would have a backlog as well. I like to keep a backlog separate from engineering backlog because each team is accountable for their own success. I don't need to know all of the things that engineering is working on. There's things that I don't understand. Like as a founder, you dedicate product resources in areas that they have expertise in or areas that they'll make strong impact in. And it's up to the business to determine how they fill in the gaps around the product person. One product person for each core area. And then maybe you don't have one for platform. You might have a specialist that handles all of that from requirements planning to execution. Feature voting, I've used had tools integrated that are like maybe public roadmap or public requests. And if they get enough votes, like you'll do it. I don't recommend that because I like the approach like that Apple takes where you surprise users with new features and you study the personas really deeply and make those decisions internally. And the market will tell you if you miss the mark or not. Roadmap items always have dependencies. So you need to understand what has to be done before a new project can be started. And you think about product ahead and then design and then engineering. Okay, I can be working on this feature set, specifying requirements here, while design's doing this set of features that I already specified. And so I handed it off to design, and then it gets handed to engineering. And of course, there's collaboration across all stakeholders, regardless of who is driving, but that's how the handoff happens. I'm accountable for this project right now, but then I'm always accountable for everything. But I'm doing the most work on this project right now, and then I hand it off once a designer has everything they need. Like it's been approved by the business, it has sufficient evidence of pain points from users and clear ask of what to be done, and removing blockers from engineering. Designers don't like to create things and then it goes to engineering and then they determine they can't do it. So all of that has to be worked out by myself before the designer begins creating their screens for it. Then I try to make sure engineering has everything they need. And that would be like the mocks, the criteria on logic or criteria on behavior, any dependencies that they should be aware of. That's a gray area. It's up to both teams to do that. Engineers are the most expensive in the organization. So make sure that they're working on very important problems and that their attention doesn't get taken off to work on bugs. It just takes experience once you are in high growth startups, leading product initiatives, driving roadmap, and having customer support raise a bug to you and going through cycles of having to determine if that should be injected into the sprint or not. You want to be happy with your engineering output. And every bug that you have them address is taking them off of progress towards the design vision, towards the ideal state of the product. You need customers to be happy, and or else you won't get adoption. There's tons of different constraints here, and that's why my job is so difficult. But you really just need experience to get solid at interviewing, get solid at knowing the structure of the business and how to differentiate yourself. I'm really great at the documentation side of things, making it real palatable for the team, and crisp requirements planning, listening to conversations, and then filtering out the noise and understanding what needs to be done in design sense. I've done websites for clients, effective in conversations with engineering because I can back up a designer's claim or what they want. If the designer's not in the meeting, I can say, this is probably what they were thinking. They were worried about proximity or any one of Gestalt principles. You can use theory to back yourself up. You can use psychology. You can use sense, and just be careful about how you do it. On the other side of things, when you're talking to a designer and explaining engineering criteria, you don't need to inform the designer of every single thing about how the product works, but they need enough information to know what the use cases are, and a bit of the technical side of like what wiggle room do they have, what can they do and what can they not do. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will be back with another one soon. Bye.